Adrian Cole. The name alone carried weight in the city. For the press, he was a self-made genius, the golden mind of investments, a billionaire who turned dust into diamonds. For the business world, he was a man of ruthless intelligence and undeniable charisma. But behind the skyscrapers, the luxury cars, and the glittering lifestyle, Adrian carried a quiet emptiness. Because while the world adored his money, he was searching for something money could never buy: true love. The shadow of doubt Adrian's childhood had been far from golden. He grew up in a cramped neighborhood where hunger was familiar and shoes often had holes. His father ran a small store, barely able to put bread on the table. Adrian studied under dim streetlights, and at night he worked in a factory to support his education. Every success he had later in life came from scars of struggle, sleepless nights, and a relentless will to prove that poverty wouldn't define him. Now, as one of the youngest millionaires in the city, he had everything except certainty about love. Clara was his girlfriend, the woman everyone believed was perfect for him. A stunning model with raven hair and a smile that could make cameras flash, she looked like she belonged on Adrian's arm. At business galas, at charity dinners, at luxury yacht parties, she was always there, dazzling, magnetic, adored. Everyone told him, "You're the luckiest man alive, Adrian." "Clara is every man's dream," Adrian would smile politely, but deep inside a question gnawed at him like a slow fire. Does Clara love me? Or does she love my money? He had seen too many false smiles, too many fake friendships, too many people who admired his bank account, but never cared for the man inside. And sometimes, when Clara looked at him, he couldn't shake the feeling that her gaze lingered more on the life he provided than on who he really was. The risky plan one evening, Adrian stood by the vast glass windows of his penthouse office, watching the city glitter like an ocean of stars. Daniel, his lifelong friend and trusted lawyer, entered quietly. "I've made my decision," Adrian said without turning. His reflection looked more like a soldier preparing for battle than a billionaire in a tailored suit. Daniel frowned. "What decision?" Adrian turned, his eyes heavy with resolve. "I'm going to test Clara. I'll pretend to be paralyzed, confined to a wheelchair after a staged accident. I want to see if her love can survive when the money no longer comes with perfection, with glamour, with strength. If she truly loves me, she'll stay." Daniel froze. "Adrian, that's madness. If you're wrong, if she leaves you, then I will know the truth," Adrian interrupted softly. "I would rather face the pain of honesty than live forever in a lie." After a long silence, Daniel finally nodded. "If this is what you need to do, then I'll stand by you." Within days, headlines screamed, "Billionaire Adrian Cole in horrific car accident, now paralyzed." The news shook the city. Paparazzi swarmed outside his mansion, cameras camped by the gates. Yet Adrian shut the world out. Only a few people were allowed inside his fortress of marble and glass. Clara, of course, Daniel, and the house staff, including one quiet maid named Elena. Clara's performance, Clara, arrived at the mansion the first evening after the news broke. She rushed into the drawing room, her heels clicking sharply against the marble floor, her perfume filling the air. When she saw Adrian seated in a wheelchair, wearing a neck brace, his eyes lowered, she gasped dramatically. "Oh, my love," she cried, dropping to her knees. She clutched his hands, pressing them against her chest. "Don't you ever think I would leave you? We will face this together. You are my whole world." Adrian looked at her tear-shining eyes. For a moment, hope bloomed in his chest. Maybe she truly loved him. Maybe his doubts were wrong. But as she hugged him tightly, a subtle thought slid through his mind. Her voice trembles at the right moments. Her tears fall on cue. But are they real? The quiet presence of Elena standing quietly in the background was Elena, the maid. She wore a crisp purple uniform with a white apron, her dark hair pinned neatly back. Unlike Clara's dramatic entrance, Elena's presence was calm, almost invisible, until Adrian's eyes found hers. She didn't rush toward him. She didn't cry out or put on a show. She simply stepped forward, set a glass of water on the table beside his wheelchair, and asked gently, "Are you comfortable, sir? Do you need anything adjusted?" Her voice carried no performance, no theatrics. Just genuine concern. Adrian looked at her, struck by the difference. In that moment, he didn't feel like a billionaire or a spectacle. He felt like a human being. And somehow, in Elena's simple question, he felt seen. The first crack in Clara's mask days turned into a week. At first, Clara visited often, bringing flowers, speaking sweetly, and fussing over Adrian's condition. But soon, small cracks appeared in her mask. One afternoon, Elena was wheeling Adrian through the garden. The trimmed hedges and marble columns framed the quiet scene. Adrian's eyes were lost in thought when Clara arrived, her silk dress swaying. She stopped, looked at Elena, pushing the chair, and smirked. "Careful, Maid," she said lightly, loud enough for Adrian to hear. "You wouldn't want to drop him, would you?" Adrian's chest tightened. The words were delivered as a joke, but there was no kindness in them. His girlfriend wasn't worried. She was mocking. Elena's grip on the wheelchair handles tightened. She leaned slightly forward and whispered, just for Adrian, "Don't worry, sir. You're safe with me." Those words pierced deeper than Clara's shallow mockery. It was such a small thing, but to Adrian, it meant the world. A different kind of care. Adrian began to notice Elena more. She was always there, quietly working, never demanding attention. When he struggled to adjust his blanket, she appeared instantly to help. When his water glass was low, she refilled it without being asked. When Clara was late, again, Elena made sure Adrian had company, sometimes humming softly as she folded linens nearby. One night, Adrian sat in the grand living room, the firelight flickering across his face. He stared at Elena as she carefully arranged books on the shelf. He picked up his phone and dialed Daniel. "Daniel," he said in a low voice, "I think I'm learning more from this test than I expected." Clara's love. "It feels thinner every day. But Elena," he paused. "Elena's heart is different. She doesn't know I'm watching, yet she treats me with more care than Clara ever has." On the other end, Daniel sighed knowingly. "Maybe the answer you've been searching for, Adrian, isn't with the woman you thought. Maybe it's been right in front of you all along, in the hands of a maid you never noticed before." Adrian ended the call, his heart pounding. He had started this plan to test his girlfriend, but now he was realizing the test might reveal something far greater, something he had never expected. The mansion had never felt so quiet. For years, its marble halls had echoed with laughter, the sound of celebrations, and the chatter of guests. But now silence ruled, broken only by the sound of Adrian's wheelchair moving slowly across polished floors. At first, Clara's presence filled that silence. She visited every day, bringing fresh bouquets, sometimes perfumed letters. She smiled, sat close to Adrian, and stroked his hand. For outsiders, she played the role of a devoted lover flawlessly. But Adrian wasn't an outsider. He was the man inside the wheelchair, and he began to notice the tiny fractures in Clara's performance. The weight of patience, it started subtly. Clara complained about the endless journalists waiting at the gates. She sighed when Adrian couldn't join her at parties anymore. One evening, as Elena brought tea to the living room, Clara's voice cut the quiet like a knife. "Adrian, you must try harder. You can't just sit here forever. What will people think?" Adrian looked down at his still hands, his voice soft. "What if this is my life now, Clara? What if I can't walk again?" Clara froze. For a split second, irritation flashed in her eyes, sharp, cold. Then she plastered on a smile. "Don't say that, darling. You'll recover. You have to." Elena, setting the tray down, caught that flash in Clara's eyes. She didn't speak, but Adrian noticed the way Elena's jaw tightened, as though she wanted to defend him, but knew her place as a maid kept her silent. That night, when Clara finally left, Elena lingered. She adjusted the blanket over Adrian's legs and said softly, "Don't let her words trouble you, sir." Strength doesn't only mean walking. Adrian looked at her, stunned by the gentleness in her tone. Clara had been with him for years, yet not once had she said something so simple. So true, the mockery, as weeks passed. Clara's mask slipped further. One afternoon, Adrian insisted on having lunch in the garden. The sunlight painted the marble pillars gold, and Elena carefully wheeled him to a table under the shade of an oak tree. She placed a napkin neatly in his lap, poured water, and smiled faintly. Clara arrived late, her heels clicking across the stone path. She looked flawless in her designer dress, but her lips curved in a smirk as soon as she saw Elena standing behind the wheelchair. "Well," Clara said sweetly, "at least you have a reliable assistant." Elena lowered her gaze, embarrassed. Adrian's jaw clenched. He could hear the venom beneath Clara's sugar-coated tone. During the meal, Clara grew impatient when Adrian struggled with his fork. She leaned across the table with exaggerated pity. "Darling, maybe you should let Elena feed you. After all, that's what she's here for, isn't she?" The words cut deeper than any knife. Adrian forced a smile, but inside fury raged. He turned slightly, meeting Elena's eyes. She stood stiff, her hands clasped tightly in front of her apron, her face pale. Adrian could see she was hurt. Not for herself, but for him. That night, as Elena helped wheel him back inside, Adrian whispered, "Thank you." Elena blinked. "For what, sir?" "For your silence. For not letting her words wound me more than they already did." For the first time since his accident, Elena allowed herself a small, genuine smile. Elena's quiet devotion days blurred together. Adrian noticed how Clara's visits became shorter, her excuses longer. "I have a shoot. I have an event. I'm tired. Always something, always somewhere else." But Elena was constant. She was there in the early mornings, drawing back the curtains so sunlight would warm his room. She was there at night, checking if he needed water before she left for her small servants' quarters. She never complained, never mocked, never treated him like a burden. One evening, rain lashed against the mansion windows. Adrian sat by the fire, the storm outside echoing the storm inside his heart. Clara hadn't come for 3 days. Elena entered quietly, holding a tray of warm soup. She set it down and for the first time sat across from him. "Sir," she said carefully, "may I ask you something?" Adrian nodded. "Why do you let her speak to you that way?" Elena's voice was steady, but her eyes shone with something unspoken. "You deserve better." Adrian's breath caught. He had expected obedience from Elena, not honesty. He leaned forward slightly. "And what do I deserve, Elena?" Her gaze didn't falter. "Respect, kindness, someone who sees you, not just what you can give." For a moment, silence filled the room, broken only by the crackling fire. Adrian's chest ached. In Elena's simple words, he felt more love than he had in all of Clara's rehearsed affections. The realization grows later. That night, when Elena had gone, Adrian stared at his reflection in the darkened window. For weeks he had been pretending, hiding behind the role of a broken man. But in that reflection he saw the truth. Clara's love was fading, slipping away with every excuse, every cruel remark, and Elena's quiet devotion. It was shining brighter than ever. Adrian had set out to test one woman's love, but the test was revealing another's. The days turned into weeks, and for Adrian Blackwell, the act of being a paralyzed man confined to his bed became more than just a test. It became a mirror, reflecting the truths of those around him. His carefully staged charade had started as a clever scheme to measure loyalty, but now it was dragging him into an emotional battlefield that even he hadn't predicted. Sophia's growing distance at first. Sophia had put on a convincing performance. She held Adrian's hand, whispered promises of standing by his side, and even shed tears when others were around. But Adrian noticed things, small things. She always seemed restless, often checking her phone while seated beside him. Sometimes, when she thought no one was watching, her smile would vanish, replaced with irritation. One evening, she sat beside him in the grand bedroom. The golden chandelier above cast shadows across her perfectly made-up face. "You know, Adrian," she said, twirling her diamond bracelet, "life doesn't stop just because things have changed. We should still think about our future." Adrian gave the faintest blink, his only means of communication in this pretend state. "Our future?" he thought. What future could she possibly mean if she believes I'll never walk again? Sophia leaned closer, lowering her voice. "You've made arrangements for me in your will, haven't you? I mean, I've devoted so much of my life to you." Her words struck him like a blade. He had loved her for years, believed in her, trusted her. And now she seemed more concerned with inheritances and luxuries than his health or happiness. He wanted to rise from that bed, to confront her with the truth, but he stayed silent. The test had to continue. Elena's quiet devotion in contrast. Elena moved like a quiet angel through the mansion. She never asked for money, never complained about long hours, and never treated him as though he were a burden. Every morning, she would open the curtains, letting the sunlight filter in, and say softly, "Good morning, Mr. Blackwell. Today is another chance. You never know what miracles may happen." Her voice carried warmth, not pity. She cleaned his room, adjusted his pillows, fed him carefully, and even read aloud from books she borrowed from the small-town library. One afternoon, as the autumn breeze rustled the curtains, Elena brought in a notebook. "My mother used to say that writing brings peace," she murmured, seating herself near him. "So I thought I'd write down your thoughts if you'd like. You blink once for yes, twice for no. We'll build a little language together." Adrian blinked once, overwhelmed. Nobody, not even Sophia, had cared enough to invent a way for him to express himself. Elena smiled, her dark eyes shimmering. "Then we'll start today," and so began their secret bond. She would ask him questions. "Do you want me to read poetry or the newspaper? Would you like music or silence? Do you believe in miracles?" Each time he answered with blinks, and she recorded his responses. To anyone else it might have seemed trivial, but to Adrian it was life. For the first time since his charade began, he felt truly seen. The unmasking of intentions Sophia, meanwhile, grew bolder. She began hosting friends in the mansion, laughing loudly in the living room while Adrian lay upstairs, paralyzed. She justified it by saying she needed company to cope. But Adrian noticed how the gatherings always involved wealthy men, investors, heirs, and businessmen. One night, Adrian overheard her speaking on the phone, her voice sharp. "No, I can't just leave yet," she snapped. "The lawyers are still finalizing some things. Trust me, once it's done, we'll have everything we dreamed of. Just be patient." Adrian's heart sank. Sophia wasn't just careless. She was already planning a life beyond him. The irony was cruel. While the woman he loved plotted behind his back, the maid he barely noticed before was proving to be his greatest ally. Moments that changed everything, there, were moments Adrian would never forget. Like the night Elena found him trembling, not from actual illness, but from the storm raging outside. The thunder reminded him of his childhood, when his parents' arguments shook the house louder than any storm. Elena knelt beside him, placing a gentle hand on his arm. "You're safe," she whispered. "I'm right here." Or the evening she brought in a small cake she had baked herself. "It's your birthday," she smiled shyly. "I couldn't let the day pass unnoticed." She lit a single candle and held it close to him. "Make a wish, Mr. Blackwell." He blinked once. His wish, for her to know how much her kindness meant. Sophia versus Elena A's weeks stretched into months. The contrast became undeniable. Sophia grew impatient. Her visits shortened. Sometimes she would enter the room, glance at Adrian and leave within minutes, muttering excuses about errands. She began to dress more extravagantly, her eyes sparkling not with love, but with ambition. Meanwhile, Elena stayed. She sang while she worked, humming melodies that calmed him. She told him about her dreams, not of wealth, but of someday opening a small cafe where she could serve homemade bread and coffee. One afternoon, Sophia stormed into the room, heels clicking angrily against the marble floor. "This is ridiculous." "Adrian," she snapped, thinking he couldn't respond. "Do you even understand what's happening? You're wasting away, and me? I'm wasting my youth." Elena, who had been changing the sheets, froze. She turned, her face pale. "Miss Sophia, please, don't speak to him like that." Sophia's eyes narrowed. "And who are you to correct me?" "You're just the help." Elena's hands trembled, but her voice remained steady. "I may be the help, but I see him as a human being, something you seem to have forgotten." Adrian's chest ached with unspoken gratitude. The decision approaches Adrian knew his act couldn't last forever. His body longed to move, to break free of this self-imposed prison. More importantly, his heart demanded a decision. The truth was clear. Sophia had failed the test. Elena had passed it in ways he never imagined possible. But how would he reveal it? How would he step back into his role as a powerful millionaire and confess everything, that his paralysis was a lie, a carefully staged test of loyalty? The fear gnawed at him. Elena might hate him for deceiving her. Sophia would explode in fury, no doubt. Yet one thing was certain. The climax was approaching. Cliffhanger that night. As Adrian lay awake, Elena entered quietly. Carrying the notebook. "I wrote something for you," she whispered, sitting close. She opened the pages to a simple sentence, written in careful script. "No matter what happens, I believe in you." Tears pricked Adrian's eyes. At that moment, he knew, when the truth came out, Elena's words would be the anchor that saved him. And soon, very soon, the truth would indeed come out. The mansion had grown colder, not from the approaching winter, but from the invisible walls building between Adrian and Sophia. Every day her visits became shorter, her excuses longer. She spent more time in the city, claiming meetings and charity events, though Adrian knew she was entertaining other suitors. Elena, however, was a constant presence. She was sunshine against the mansion's gloom. She cleaned, cared, and laughed softly, filling the silence with warmth. But Adrian could feel his strength pressing against the boundaries of his false paralysis. His muscles ached to move, his lips longed to speak. He had tested enough. He had seen Sophia's heart and Elena's soul. It was time. Sophia's betrayal. The revelation came faster than he expected. One evening, Adrian's lawyer, Mr. Turner, arrived with documents. Adrian lay still, but his sharp ears caught every word. "Miss Sophia," Mr. Turner explained politely, "Mr. Blackwell's estate is protected. You will receive a generous allowance, but the majority of his assets remain under his personal control. Unless, of course, he marries—" Sophia's face twisted in anger. "Allowance? After all I've sacrificed." Mr. Turner cleared his throat uncomfortably. "It is what Mr. Blackwell arranged before. His condition." Sophia stormed into Adrian's room afterward, her eyes blazing. "Do you hear this, Adrian? After everything, I get scraps. Do you know how many men are waiting for me out there? Strong, healthy men who can actually walk beside me?" Her words cut deeper than any knife. She leaned closer, her voice venomous. "Maybe you should just fade away. Then at least I'll be free." She turned on her heel and slammed the door, her perfume lingering like poison in the air. Elena, who had overheard everything from the hallway, stepped in cautiously. Her hands trembled, but she sat by Adrian's side, whispering, "Don't listen to her." "You're worth more than all the gold in the world." Adrian blinked once, a silent thank you. The decision to reveal. That night, Adrian lay awake, staring at the ceiling. His test had revealed all he needed to know. Sophia's love had been conditional, bound by greed and vanity. Elena's devotion had been pure, unasked and unshakable. But the fear remained. Would Elena forgive him once she knew he had deceived everyone, even her? As dawn broke, painting the sky in shades of gold, Adrian made his choice. The awakening. The moment came in the quiet of a rainy morning. Elena entered with a tray of breakfast, her usual homemade bread and tea. She set it down and noticed Adrian's eyes following her more intently than usual. "Good morning," she said warmly. "Did you sleep well?" Adrian swallowed hard. For weeks he had silenced himself. But now his voice broke free, raspy from disuse. "Elena!" The tray nearly slipped from her hands. She spun around, her eyes wide. You spoke." Adrian pushed himself upward, his body trembling, every muscle screaming with the effort. Elena rushed to his side, gasping as he sat upright for the first time. "It was all—" "An act," he whispered, his voice growing stronger. "I had to know the truth." Her face paled. "An act? You mean you were never paralyzed?" He nodded, shame flooding his features. "I pretended to test Sophia, to see if she truly loved me. But in the process, I found something I never expected." Elena stepped back, tears brimming in her eyes. "You lied to everyone. To me, I did," Adrian admitted. "And if you hate me for it, I'll accept that. But know this, you showed me what love truly looks like. Not Sophia, you. Confrontation at that very moment, Sophia entered the room, dressed elegantly as always. She froze, her eyes widening at the sight of Adrian sitting up. You can move? She stammered. Yes, Sophia, Adrian said firmly, his voice clear now. I could move all along, she blinked, her shock quickly turning to anger. So this was a game? A cruel trick? No, Adrian replied coldly. It was a test. And you failed, her face flushed red. Failed? I stayed by your side. You stayed for my money, Adrian interrupted. Not for me. You revealed your heart the moment you thought I could give you nothing. Sophia's lips trembled, but pride kept her standing tall. You'll regret this, Adrian. You'll never find someone like me again. You're right, he said softly, turning toward Elena. Because I already have someone better. Elena's choice, Sophia stormed out, slamming the door so hard the walls rattled. Silence settled between Adrian and Elena. Elena, Adrian said gently, reaching for her hand. I know I hurt you with my lie. I don't deserve your forgiveness. But you deserve the truth. You are the one who opened my eyes. You cared when you had nothing to gain. You believed when everyone else doubted. You showed me love without asking for anything in return. Tears slipped down Elena's cheeks. But how can I trust you now? If you could lie about this, I swear, Adrian said, his voice breaking. From this day forward, I'll never lie to you again. I'll spend every moment proving my love if you'll let me. The room was quiet except for the sound of the rain. Finally, Elena whispered, I don't know if I can forgive you, but my heart tells me I can't walk away either. Adrian's chest tightened with hope. The new beginning in the weeks that followed. Sophia disappeared from their lives, her greed leading her into the arms of others. Adrian, however, dedicated himself to rebuilding trust with Elena. He helped her set up her dream cafe, investing not just money but time, painting walls beside her, serving customers on the opening day, laughing as Flower dusted his suit. Slowly, Elena's guarded heart softened. She saw his sincerity, his determination to be a better man. One evening, as the cafe lights glowed warmly and the smell of fresh bread filled the air, Adrian took Elena's hands. Elena, he said softly, I once pretended to be paralyzed to see the truth. But with you, there's no pretending. You've shown me what real love is. Will you give me the honor of being the man who walks beside you, not above you? Her eyes glistened. Yes, Adrian. But only if you promise never to test my love again. He smiled through tears. Never again. Epilogue. True love's reward, months later. The mansion that once echoed with loneliness now brimmed with laughter. Adrian and Elena's cafe flourished, not as a business venture but as a symbol of their journey, humble, honest, and full of love. And as Adrian watched Elena greet customers with her radiant smile, he knew the test that once began in deception had led him to the greatest truth of all. True love is proven not in wealth or promises, but in quiet acts of care when no one is watching.